Yeah.
That's what I was gonna say.
Yeah, yeah. No.
That sentence. I was. You heard me. I was saying obstacles.
So you're very well known and critically acclaimed and award-winning for Rami, your show on Hulu. That a lot of us came to know your large body of work through Rami. And if you can just talk, so I know it's semi-autobiographical, but then one of the things that you note is that you kind of wish you didn't name that character Rami because we kind of project onto. So is that why Rumi is not Rami? One thing, and then two.
They were so lazy with the naming. Like, let's just change a few letters.
But it has a double meaning.
It does have a double meaning.
Yeah,
yes,
yeah,
that was more about his. Yeah, that was about the poet.
Yeah, yeah, I appreciated that. But then also in Rami, like you've said that as the character, as the seasons grow, you're further and further away from the character. So can you just talk a little bit about, like, for the writers in the room and for the audience, but like, what does it mean to kind of have, at least in the beginning, your identity, your family, your world as a space to mine, and also as like a stand-up, like,
Yeah.
and then, you know, how do you begin to separate you, the individual, from the projected personality to the one that we're consuming, to someone who's completely different from you altogether? When does that happen?
I think a lot of it for me was filming the first season of the show because it's an ensemble show, and you know, so I started writing the show based off of, I had this hour stand-up tape that had a bunch of material that felt like it could work for different characters and different storylines, and so it was incredibly personal in that sense. But then even when you get into writing, you know, 30, 35, 40-page scripts around an idea that you know is at its core something that's, you know, very you, once you stretch it, you have to kind of go with where the character wants to go. And then I think the more that you make a show and the more that you make something and you have characters bouncing off of each other, you do really have this moment where you kind of look at them and you go, oh, whoa, I think this character is trying to do this.
Mm-hmm.
And it's kind of part of this alchemy that that's hard to place, but it starts to happen when it's up on its feet and we're performing it and shooting it, and then it really happens in the edit when you kind of start to say, oh, these are the scenes that stay in and these are the scenes that we cut out, and this is where I wish the character was going more. And so there was this thing where in the beginning I kind of had to be loyal to things that I knew would work based on, I had done them in a crowd, you know, and I had done them in stand-up, and so I could kind of say, hey, this joke works. But then you kind of start, your loyalty starts to lie with kind of this character that's been created, and then you kind of go, okay, he wants to go that way, you know, and because this character is going this way, and then you start finding these things that are really so much better than anything you could have come up with, and you know, and this is why I always say semi-autobiographical and really like, hey, it's not really based on me, is that making this stuff is such a team effort.
Yeah.
You know, it's really misleading that the show is called Rami for a variety of reasons, but even the idea that it's all just me, like, I'm there to protect it, to like, hey, I know what the seed is of what it's gotta be. But my direction and writing and all that stuff really is kind of like this outer case for, you know, what many people are doing, you know, and what many people are bringing, and especially a show like this, I mean, the way that the animators brought it to, I felt like an audience member. Because you know, you would send things in, and then you kind of watch this rudimentary drawing of something, and then it comes back animated like months later, and you're watching it. I'm watching it like you guys watched it. I go, whoa, shit, that's nuts! Like I couldn't believe it. You know, you know, there was a big distance for me on this, as opposed to at least, you know, in some of the live action stuff, you're pointing the camera and you're there, and you are quite literally manipulating the frame and moving things and whatever. But yeah, again, even there, just so many people kind of coming together to make it what it should be. And so I every project I do, I philosophically try to lay out like the top line thing about the show. It's like, hey, this is what this show is about, and we're all working for that idea. So it's like, if you're in a writer's room with me, or if you're, you know, doing whatever with me, it's like, you're not working for me, like you're working for the idea, and I am like the number one assistant to the idea. So it's like, it will funnel through me, but anything that touches what we're trying to do, that's what's gonna win. Like that's what we gotta do, you know? And so I think on a show like this, the main thing that we were really trying to hone in on is the code switching, is this idea of giving up part of yourself, and then watching characters, you know, reckon with that. On Rami, it was the spiritual self, that higher self battling the lower self. On Mo, everything was man versus system, and how the systems can kind of take apart everything that you're trying to build. And so those are the things that we make sure, like, hey, does this pitch fit into man versus system? Does this pitch fit into, I'm ripping myself apart and I don't know who I am? And then everything kind of comes from there.
That's great, thank you. Those are good tips too for people writing TV shows and films in here. I have 2 more questions, and I'll open it up to the audience. So I write a lot about other artists of your generation, and I'm thinking of like Sterling and Harjo from Reservation Dogs, Issa Rae from Insecure. You're part of like this generation, Mo, Donald Glover from Atlanta, who are like irreverent. And also kind of pushing back against the kind of politics of representation and respectability. And so like, I love this warning that we have at every episode that this, like, we're not supposed to like typecast like all the people from New Jersey, right? Like, so if you could talk a little bit about like, and this is like a thing that comes up in interview after interview. So I know people want to impose representation onto you, and then at the same time, you also are singular in, at least with Rami, in terms of being like the first show to have like a predominantly or exclusively Muslim American writing room. Is that correct? Or
we had a mix, but definitely, a bunch of
yes, maybe not the writing room. There's
firsts.
the cast or something.
Sure. In the English language.
Yeah, the English language. So I guess how do you balance like you don't? Because I think it's like a millennial pushback against representation, and like and reverence is part of like the aesthetic and also the politic, and yet then there are these moments when people are trying to put you into categories constantly, and so you have to give us a warning. Like, how do you navigate that, or why is that important to you at all?
The warning, first of all, just makes me laugh.
Yeah,
I mean, it was definitely, but I think that there's just too many experiences, and so I think. There's this desire to, what it is? I remember seeing this article that was like, hey Muslims, a show is coming for you. And it made me really think, and this was before Rami came out. It was before Rami came out. It's like, hey, there's a show coming for Muslims. Like, finally you get your show.
Okay.
And I thought it was just so incredibly reductive. And for me, I was also like, whoa, like, a lot of them are going to be pissed. Don't say that. But I felt like I'd never seen, there's never anything that was like, white guys who are 20, here's your show. Like, that no one ever would do that.
Yeah.
And so there's this somewhat reductive thing that happens with the representation idea, because it's this really false kind of pat on the back, and it sometimes feels like it's this, like we're on a checklist and like we did it and now we can move on, and these are ever-present conversations that are going to kind of keep going and keep moving. And so I guess I just I refuse to see art get like censused, and kind of like put into this census of, well, we did this for that and this for that, and like, because I think it's not meant to be statistical. It's not meant to be logical. It's barely meant to be informative. I think it's only really meant to be emotionally evocative. And that's it, and so I think anytime it starts being about all that other stuff, I think it kind of sucks for everyone involved. It sucks for the people making it sucks for the people watching it to kind of feel like, that's supposed to be me, because it isn't, unless it is, right? You can take whatever you want from it, and you can leave whatever, you don't, and so that is where that came from, that warning.
Okay, one question left, and then we're gonna open it up. Oh yeah, okay, so my question is a two-parter, because I really had 2 questions.